Hey guys, if you're familiar at all with my channel, you might know that most of my stuff is scripted content. So, like, I'll do some research and write a script and try to memorize it or kind of read it off my laptop. But on Patreon, every month I do a sort of off the cuff video on a variety of different topics. And I wanted to give that a try on the main channel for this one video while I work on some other videos that are taking a bit longer than I thought they would take. So today's topic, as you can see from the name of the video, is I'm going to rank the various Kiss costumes through the recently popular tier ranking system. If you haven't seen that before, it's kind of become popular online, and it sort of works in like as like letter grades. So it's kind of like, so S is the best, and then you have A, B, C, and D. Though I think you can go like lower and include like F. I don't know if I'll do any Fs, but we'll see. We'll include F if I need to. I have not prepared what the ranking is. I'm going to do it kind of as we go, off the cuff. And it's the makeup costume. So like what they wore in like the 80s and 90s, that doesn't count. I'm just going off of the actual proper costumes. And we're going to sort of go member by member. It's not going to be like a group ranking. It's going to be the individual costumes. So first we kind of have the OG costumes. Obviously, when Kiss first formed, it was putting stuff together. They would kind of just make stuff themselves, maybe wear like black jeans. They had some, I think Paul had a pair of pants that he sewed himself. They would make t-shirts with the Kiss logo on that. They would like glue rhinestones to them themselves. I'm not counting any of that because they're not kind of official costumes, and what they wore would sort of change. We're starting with sort of like the proper like costumes that happened when they signed with Bill Aucoin and Neil Bogart. So they're these sort of early costumes in late 73, early 74, sort of around the release of the first album. Gene, we'll start with first. His costume is pretty basic. It's pretty cool looking, but it's not anything I think to write home about. So that one I would probably go B tier. It's good, it looks cool, but it doesn't particularly stand out. Paul is going to have the hardest time in this ranking because Paul's costumes were always kind of the most basic. This costume is kind of just a leather jacket and some pants, but it looks good, so I'd say, again, B. Peter's costume from this time, I'd put him at a C. It's not particularly memorable or interesting. It's just kind of whatever. Ace's costume, I think, is the best of this. I like the design of the sort of like of the top. I think that's really cool. So his I would probably give an A to. His costume's really cool. And then we have the proper Kiss slash Hotter Than Hell outfits. Gene's is pretty cool. This is the one where he's got like the skull and crossbones on his chest, though sometimes he'd take that out because that costume is very, very hot. But we're kind of considering the version where it's not, where his chest is covered and it's got the skull and crossbones, because I think that's a really cool looking costume, and I'd probably give that one, I'd say A tier for that one. That one's really, really good. Paul's kind of didn't change much. He'll like ditch the leather jacket and kind of just go shirtless. He started doing that to show off his rose tattoo when he got that. So him, I would, the same as what I said for the first outfit, probably, B tier. Like basic, it works, but it's nothing interesting. Peter, I'd go C again. Again, just not a costume that stands out or is that memorable to me. And then we have Aces, which is really cool. This is the first time we see the sort of V thing. He wears quite a bit. That sort of becomes a signature part of a lot of Ace's outfits, is this sort of like V. I don't even know what you would call it. The kind of, I guess, the shield. I don't know. But it's really, really cool. The boots are great. This is probably the first S tier costume. I think Ace's sort of first album, Hotter Than Hell costume, is really, really good. Okay, and then we go into Dress to Kill / Alive. This is a great look for the band overall. Gene's costume is really, really cool. I think it's the first one where like spikes get integrated, where there are spikes as part of his costume. It's just, yeah, it's really cool. I have to go S tier for that. Oh, another thing we're going to be doing. So this costume comes back in the 2000s, around 2003, and Gene wears it again for a few years. It's sort of a recreation. And the recreation version of Gene's Alive costume, I would put in C tier. It looks okay. It looks a lot cheaper than the original, which is weird. You think they'd have more money for costumes in the 2000s? But I don't know. The newer version, the reproduction from the 2000s, looks a lot cheaper to me. And it looks okay, but not as good as the 70s version. You can also tell it's modified to cover more of Gene, which I understand that. So Paul's outfit has two sort of variants. There's the version you would see in like the promo videos and maybe some photos where he's got like the really like poofy shoulder pads. And I'd probably put that one in A tier. It's pretty cool looking. And then you have sort of the version without the shoulder pads, which is sort of, how he would go live. That's kind of just that simple jumpsuit. And that I give A tier as well. Paul's outfits are typically really simple and really like cool looking, but nothing like super outstanding in my opinion. But still cool. Peter's costume is and then Paul's recreation, again, like Gene's C tier, it from the 2000s. It's fine. It looks cheap. Not as good as the original, but whatever. And then now we can say Peter's. Peter's Alive costume is really good. I think that's his first really good looking costume. I'd probably go A tier. I like that costume a lot. That's a solid A tier for Peter. The recreation from the 2000s that both Peter and then Eric wore. C tier for the same reasons as the other recreations. It's just kind of blah looking compared to its original counterpart. Ace's costume is really, really cool. There are also two variants for this. There's like a long sleeve version and then like a 3/4 lengths. Or maybe it's a little shorter than that, but a short sleeve and a long sleeve version. I prefer the short sleeve version. But I'm sorry I'm saying so much. That's what happens when it's off the cuff. I'm going to try not to say But those are both, I think, really, really cool looking costumes. The very simple black with the glitter, the shoulder pads. That's an S tier costume. Tommy's recreation of it from the 2000s is okay, C tier. And then we come to Destroyer, and just simple across the board. All 4 outfits are S tier. These are great costumes. The band looks amazing. I think all 4 costumes look really, really cool. Paul and Peter both have variants of theirs. Around Destroyer, Paul had this like sort of full long sleeve jumpsuit. And then, I don't know if it was for Rock and Roll Over or if it had already started to happen during the Destroyer era, but Paul kind of moves to something closer to his Alive outfit, though sort of still based in the Destroyer design, and he starts wearing those, I don't know, these like things on his arms that have like feathers or something. I'm sorry, I'm not a costume designer. I'm not sure what all this stuff is called. I probably should have looked that up. But I think if you see the costume, you know what I'm talking about. And that version, I'd go down to A tier. But the proper like Destroyer costume, like that full jumpsuit, I would put that at S. Peter, if you've seen some stuff from Destroyer, he's got like a long sleeve costume. But then, again, I don't know if this was for Rock and Roll Over or if it had already started happening before, but they take the sleeves off and it becomes like a tank top kind of thing. And I prefer the sleeveless version. I like the tank top version a lot more. I think that's really, really cool looking. So I would put that at S tier. No, I'd put them both S tier. I think both of those versions of the costumes are really great. Recreations, they reward them. First, during Psycho Circus. And I would say Paul, Peter, and Ace, those recreations are pretty good. I would put those maybe A minus, maybe B plus, somewhere kind of in there. Again, it's the same problem I have with the Alive ones where they look a little cheaper. Gene's recreation, I would put it D. The armor just looks so much worse. I don't know why, but it does. It looks really cheap, really plasticky. And I know he wasn't wearing actual armor in the 70s, but I don't know, something about the Psycho Circus version just looks like crap, I think. And then the band wore these outfits again around Alive 35. And obviously this time with Tommy and Eric. I would actually put Tommy and Eric wearing these outfits in the A tier. I actually thought they looked really good during this time. The Destroyer outfits fit them really well, and I thought the recreations of those outfits looked really good. Gene's is still in D. It looks like shit. And Paul's I'd probably keep in B. It's fine. Then we move into Love Gun. These are my favorite outfits for all four members. All S tier, all amazing. Absolutely no notes. It's all so good. This is the definitive Kiss to me. This image, these costumes, it's perfect, no notes. These recreations happened for the reunion tour in 1996, and I'd go B. They look fine, but they're not as good as the originals. They look cheaper. Now we have a weird outlier here where Paul did some promotional work, I think, for the solo albums, and he has this kind of weird looking costume where he's got white pants and a bit of a jacket. And this costume, I'd put it C. It's fine, but just kind of, I don't know, weird. I don't really like it that much, but it's okay. Next, we move into Dynasty. This is obviously a bit of a departure for the band. They start implementing more colors and going away from sort of the black and white. Starting with Gene, his armor is pretty cool. I like that a lot. I like the cape. I'm obviously a big superhero guy, so I like the cape a lot. I'd probably go A tier for that one. I think it's a really cool looking costume. I think it loses a lot when he takes off the cape. Because, during the concert, he'll wear the cape for a couple songs and then he'll take it off. And I don't think the costume looks as good without the cape. Paul's I like a lot. I put Paul's in S tier. It's this kind of purple jacket over his kind of typical jumpsuit that he wears for a lot of his costumes. And I think that's really good looking and really, really works. Peter's is okay. I'd probably put Peter's in C tier. It doesn't do much for me. Ace's is S tier. Again, it's playing on that V thing that works really well for him. I love the colors. I love the cape. He looks great. That's a great costume. And then we move into Unmasked. Gene and Ace stay the same. Paul gets a new purple jacket with some black feathers on it, and that's pretty good looking. I'd probably stick that in S tier as well. I think that costume really works. And then you have then new member Eric Carr debuting for the first time, and he looks pretty good. He's got, in promotional stuff, he's got this red top with feather shoulder pads that are orange. That's a pretty good look. I'd give that an S. I think that looks great. Once he got on stage, he would sort of take that off and wear something closer to Peter's Dynasty outfit, and that I'd put in C tier. It's fine, but it doesn't particularly stand out to me. And then we move into The Elder. This is another sort of departure for them, but sort of in the opposite direction where they're trying to simplify back down and not be so outlandish. Jeans, I'd say C. It doesn't do much for me. I think it's kind of boring looking. Paul, also C. I don't know, just not that interesting of a costume. Ace, I'd go S. I really like Ace's costume. I like the 3/4 length sleeve. That's just a fashion choice I like in general. I like wearing shirts with that sleeve length, and I like when other people wear it. I think that looks cool. The design's really good. It's simple, but also still effective and memorable. I think it's a great costume. And then you have Eric, who I'd also put at C. Just not a particularly memorable or interesting costume, in my opinion. Moving on to Creatures of the Night. This is an interesting one to do because the costumes are somewhat put together from various different costumes, as Kiss wasn't doing very well at the time. They didn't have a ton of money, and so they were trying to sort of save money where they could. So there's a bit of combining bits of different costumes here. That's kind of neat. Gene's I love. I think Gene looks really great. I'd give that an S. Obviously, it's a kind of a mix of his Destroyer and Love Gun costumes and a little bit of his Elder one, and I think it just looks great. Paul's is simple but kind of works. He's got this sort of like sports bra thing with a bunch of rhinestones on it, some good looking boots. I'd probably give that one an A tier. That's pretty good looking. Eric's is a little blah. He's got one version with sleeves that somewhat resembles Paul's Destroyer outfit a little bit. That one I'd probably go A. But then again, like when they play live, he's kind of got sort of like a vest thing like he also wore during Unmasked that I think has some fur on it. It's kind of blah. I'd go C. And then you have Vinny, and his costume's also pretty blah. Maybe B tier. It looks okay, but nothing that interesting or cool. And then yet they had recreations of these in the 2010s. Tommy wore Ace's Elder outfit though. That was a good look for Tommy. I'd probably give that one an A. Eric, I'd again put that in C. Gene's recreation, I'd probably go down to B. Again, like there are changes made to it to obviously hide Gene being older and heavier in weight. I don't say that to insult him, it's just a reality. And the costume just doesn't look as good in my opinion. Paul's, I'd stay in A. I think Paul still looks pretty good in that costume. That takes us out of sort of the original makeup era, and now we're moving into the current lineup. First we have the Sonic Boom costumes. Gene's is pretty cool. I'd probably go B. It's sort of a chrome armor look, and I think that works pretty well and looks good. Paul, I'd go A. Paul looks really good. He's got this sort of cool trench coat kind of deal that then he takes off for a neat looking vest that's reminiscent of what he wore during the Love Gun era. That looks really good. Eric, I'd go B. It's a solid outfit, very reminiscent of the early days of Kiss. It looks good. Tommy, I'd also go B. They sort of stuck with a V shape, but I'm not a big fan of the wavy shoulder pads they gave him, but it still looks good. And then we go into Monster, and the Monster outfits are sort of variations of the Sonic Boom outfits. Gene's looks a little worse. I'd probably go down to C for Gene's Monster outfit. He added some like yellow spikes to him, which in concept, I kind of like what they're going for there. I imagine meant to evoke maybe like bones or fangs of like, big animals. It sort of just ends up looking like he's got a bunch of bananas on him, and it just doesn't look very good. Paul, I think, looks pretty good. I'd put that at A. It's a cool kind of vest thing he's got going on. Eric's I like. I'd put Eric at like a high B maybe. He's got the Chikara symbols on it, which I like a lot. I think that looks really good. Tommy, I'd probably stay Tommy in B as well. It's mostly the same outfit, but instead of sort of the wavy shoulder pads, they like added a weird V on top of the existing V, and I just don't think that looks very good. I don't like the V thing, and that kind of takes the outfit down for me. And then we have the end of the road outfits. So Gene's outfit I would probably put in C tier. I like some of the ideas they're putting into it. I know at certain points they tried to add a bit of red into it, and it's sort of changed over the course of the tour here and there in different ways. It's just a little busy. There's a lot going on with that costume, and I don't think it. Again, I don't say this to make fun of Gene. It's just a reality of getting older. He's heavier than he used to be. Again, I'm not insulting him. It's just a reality. He is. And I don't think the costume helped with that. I think it just made it worse. Like he just kind of looks really big and kind of bloated. I don't think it's a flattering costume that looks good. It just kind of looks awkward. Paul looks pretty good. I put his in A. I like the gloves. I like the little shoulder pads he has. I think that's a really good looking costume. Eric, I'd go B. Again, his costumes have been really simple, vest based a lot of the times, but good looking. Tommy's costume is a lot, but it is very memorable, and there are parts about it that I do think are really cool. I'll give him A tier. I'll give him an A tier. I like the sort of blue jewel in the middle. I think that looks really cool. And yeah, like it's a little over designed, but I think a good look overall. Okay, so I think that covered every costume. I hope you guys enjoyed that video. Feel free to leave your own rankings and your own thoughts on the costumes in the comments. If you want to see more videos, be sure to like and subscribe and all that stuff. You can also support my channel on Patreon, where you get early access to videos and also a monthly sort of unscripted video like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.